Welcome to the podcast portion of Breaking Battlegrounds. Chuck, good program so far today, and now we have a Matthew Putnam, friend of the program and associate of external affairs with the National Taxpayers Union. Guy we always love having on to talk because he is a man after our own heart. Matthew, welcome back to the program.
Thanks. It's good to be back.
So let me ask you this question real quick. So Florida, we covered it last time you were here, but now they're really going at it in Florida to eliminate property tax.
How do you do that in Florida?
Well, you can't, but go ahead, Matt. But what I want to ask you is, you suggested that they should go and follow Utah's model of truth and taxation. So can you explain to us what's going on in Florida and why truth and taxation would be helpful to them?
For sure. Obviously, property tax is one of the most disliked taxes, and people are getting their huge bill every year. That's the big number that they're getting, and that's what's driving a lot of this hatred for property tax. And Ron DeSantis, the governor, is really pushing in Florida for a complete abolition. He's butting heads with the House and the Senate, and it's a $60 billion loss if they go through with complete abolition. I think a lot of the state legislators are opposed to that and think that they need to be a little bit more pragmatic. And one way we think they could do that is going forward with truth and taxation, a policy that Utah has had for 40 years, and both Kansas and Nebraska have adopted in the last 6 or 7 years.
And we have it here in Arizona as well. And one of the critical elements, because a lot of people may not be in those states, may not be familiar with this, but property taxes can often be tricky. Your local government can put out an announcement that says, we're lowering your rate, but your tax bill is actually going up. They leave that part out, right? And truth in taxation cuts through that, because if you get a notice in the mail, it means your taxes are going up.
Absolutely. With assessments on the rise and with inflation, a lot of the time, just the value of your home will increase your taxes. Sometimes lawmakers try to get around this, or your municipality will try to get around this and say, oh, we're not increasing your property tax because the rate stays the same. But that's just not the truth of the matter. And that's what's really driving a lot of people to push their legislators to make some kind of change, because the property taxes are getting out there. And what truth in taxation as a policy does is also, in addition to the transparency element, it also keeps a revenue neutral rate. So the rate that you're paying is more or less going to be the same from house to house. But in the municipality as a whole, they'll have the same revenue as the previous year, unless they make an effort to increase that.
Are we seeing a rapid increase of property taxes across the country since COVID?
Absolutely. All of the inflation that came out of the Biden administration drove that. And then in certain states like Florida, the immigration from one state to another is driving that as well. So
I have this idea, which I've actually had the legislation or the initiative language drafted. It's this. I think one way we can stop this madness is, the average turnout for increasing property taxes in municipal elections is 15 to 35%. Okay? Mm-hmm. What if we passed a law that said you can only increase property taxes or bonds if the voter turnout is 50%? So you're not requiring. You're not requiring 2/3.
Way that you could go.
Yeah, but my thought behind it is, the reason I had it drafted, and we're going to start moving around the country, is because at least with 50% turnout, at least half the population knows what the heck they're voting on. And Sam and I sort of had this concept this year. We had two bonds on here, or were they sales tax increases? What were they?
One was a bond, one was a sales tax increase.
And what was the turnout for it in Maricopa County?
So it was like 18% on the bond.
So 18% of people voted for these bonds. And
the 35-year sales tax, which was at like 26%.
So basically, I had numerous people call me and say, what are these things about? People didn't even know what it was. So if you're going to ask people to keep raising these taxes, you should at least have half the population informed enough they can come out and vote yes or no on it. What are your thoughts on that?
For sure. That's definitely one direction to take on increasing the turnout and making sure that people are aware of what's going on. Another route that we've seen some of our partners up here are pushing is making sure that all these elections are consistent, having them in November, not having special elections that people don't even know what's going on in May or something else. So making sure this lines up with other elections is also really important.
I think that's a critical issue because you see, I think both of these things point to one of the underlying problems that I don't think most people in our society understand. But Matthew, you probably do. Our government is so big at so many levels, federal, state, local. They have so many contractors working for them, so many people whose income is dependent on that government continuing to spend money, that in these super low turnout elections, I've really come to the belief in looking at the numbers that what we're seeing is things are being passed primarily in majority by people who have a direct financial interest in their passage. That there's so many people in the city of Phoenix and Maricopa County who work for those governments that if you have 26% turnout, they constitute a majority voting block, and they all vote.
And you see that bloat just continue to increase because of those vested interests. And we think that part of the issue with property tax is also that it's increasing because all of these local municipalities are raising their budgets from year to year, and they need to pay for that somehow. So if you can reduce spending, that's another factor in this, right? You don't need to just abolish property tax. You need to look at why revenues are increasing.
Do you think Florida, do you have some takers in Florida to take up legislation like truth and taxation as they're debating these property taxes?
We've talked to a couple lawmakers, but there's an issue with especially the governor. He's even turning down the ones that have been introduced. He is really aggressive with the House especially, and is saying that they are not doing enough. The large homestead exemptions that they're putting forward just isn't enough in his eyes for Florida.
Well, but has he proposed, I haven't seen it, and I generally like Ron DeSantis quite a bit. Has he proposed an alternative? Like, are they looking at an increased sales tax or some other tax to offset at least a portion of the revenue they would give up if they got rid of property taxes?
I've still yet to see anything from his office. He had mentioned that only 30% of the revenue that they bring from property tax is from primary residences. So I think the idea there is that, this 60% of revenues we'll be able to deal with just that 30% loss. But that's still a $15 billion loss to local revenues, and that'll be hard to make up.
Well, and you're going to have every Democrat politician coming and buying a rental home, claiming it as their primary residence. So how's that going to work out?
Right.
Well, but Florida
when you're looking at rental properties too, a third of Florida residents are renters, and that'll drive up their rents too. Like, people are right. I understand why it's important for the homesteads, but there are still people that are renting as well.
Well, what's funny about this conversation? Two things. First of all, Florida receives $56 billion annually in funding from property taxes. I mean, that's not small change,
lot of money.
Right. But the funny thing about this conversation with us three is we all hate taxes. And the fact is, there has to be a plan to replace the revenue.
So, guys, I hate taxes. I want to throw you have to have a plan for, are you going to cut spending, replace the revenue, whatever. I am so sick of these discussions. I got to be honest, guys. I am so sick of these discussions about it's property tax, it's income tax, it's this or that. Let's talk about total taxation. Let's talk about the total tax burden in its state.
For sure.
That's how we should be talking about this.
Exactly.
Because Texas, I mean, everyone's like, Texas, low income taxes.
Their property taxes are high.
Their property taxes are through the roof. Their sales taxes are high. It's not actually that low tax of a state.
No, it's not. It's not.
And getting rid of the property tax would make the sales tax skyrocket.
Right.
The Tax Foundation looked into this, and they found that to make up these revenues, statewide, the average would have to go from about 7% to 15%. And in some counties, that would be even higher. Their estimate for Glades County, which doesn't have much retail, was that they would have to make it their sales tax 32% to make up for the property tax.
Oh, man.
So as we wrap up with you, Matthew, the question here is, what should people be looking at? What sort of onerous taxes do you see various legislatures trying to push through these upcoming legislative sessions in 2026?
Well, our biggest thing that we're looking at, obviously, is the property tax. It's not just Florida. There are 4 other states that are looking really seriously at abolishing property tax, and we think truth in taxation is a great alternative to that approach. But we're always looking at every ballot measure in the major election years, and this past year we looked at, I think, over 900 across localities, different sales taxes, different bonds. So we're always keeping an eye out for those and publishing our views and how people should vote on those.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. We always appreciate having you on the program. We look forward to having you back again soon, because I know there's going to be a lot of action with legislatures just getting started. There's going to be new tax and tax cut proposals all over the country. So we will be bringing you back on to talk about those in the near future.
Matthew, I do want to ask one question before you leave. Do the wealth taxes being voted on and passed in certain blue states, is it driving people to leave the state? Do we have numbers on that?
Absolutely. We published a tax migration piece a couple weeks ago, looking at where people are leaving, where they're going to, and if I'm remembering right, for example, Illinois is losing 2 people every minute, something to that effect. So people are being driven out of these states in substantial numbers, and they're going to places like Florida.
Where can people find that report, Matthew?
That's on our website. If you go to ntu.org, it's posted up there. And there's a lot of traction on that one because people are interested in why people are leaving.
There's going to be a lot of traction in New York on that one real soon.
Well, one thing that's not being covered because Americans don't care, but the number of people leaving England.
Huge.
Because of the wealth taxes on there. Yeah. It's pretty, I mean, they lost 56,000 last year.
Wow.
So Norway had the same exodus about 2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, Matthew, thanks a million. Have a great weekend.
Of course. You too.